Nadu is seeing after the deaths of two towering politicians, Karunanidhi and Jayalalitha. It's not just the absence of tall personalities that's being felt, it's the absence of any mass leader with a pan-Tamil Nadu appeal. Someone who commands popularity from the north to the south. It's in this backdrop that Assembly Election 2021 is seeing caste emerge as a key factor, to the extent that he who gets his caste matrix right could be the victor.
In the absence of personality-driven politics, what we are going to see this time around is caste-driven alliance on one side versus ideology-driven alliance on the other side. How these unique caste lines get drawn along the battle lines on the ground have turned fascinating. Welcome to this special edition on the battle for Tamil Nadu as we try to decipher this complex state struggling with its biggest question on who to be loyal to.
In the deep south of Tamil Nadu's hinterland, snuggled between Kanyakumari and the cracker manufacturing town of Sivakasi, is Kovilpatti, a small constituency that will be the testing ground for a unique experiment. "2.6 lakh voters will decide the fate of a man who 4 years ago took on 3 powerful political parties single-handedly. TTV Dinakaran is contesting from Kovilpatti. The nephew of former CM Jayalalitha's close aide V.K. Sashikala, Dinakaran founded the Amma Makkal Munnetra Karagam 3 years ago. He chose Kovilpatti for a reason. It has the right mix of communities to give him an edge. There's nothing remarkable or impressive about Kovilpatti. Known as a matchstick manufacturing hub, the dusty semi-urban town has no particular appeal. But it could see sharp divisions among its voting public, torn between caste and loyalty. This is a constituency that has an almost equal number of the dominant Mukkulathur community and the Devendra Kulla Vellalars.
Their long-standing demand to be known as Devendra Kulla Vellalar, they will now be known by their heritage name.
The Devendra Kulla Vellalars, a medley of 7 castes, shot into the news last month when the Prime Minister mentioned them at a rally. They have a long-standing demand to be removed from the list of scheduled castes. While this demand has not been met, the AIADMK and allied BJP hope that the announcement to consider this may get them the support of the community. The Mukkulathurs, also known as the Tevars, are however a dominant community in greater numbers across South Tamil Nadu. This is the community that TTV Dinakaran hails from. But it's also a community that has so far been closely identified with his rival, the All India Anna Dravida Munnetra Karagam AIADMK.
In Kovilpatti then, as with the rest of southern Tamil Nadu, the effect is that of throwing a stone in still waters. You have on the one hand the dream or promise given to a section of scheduled castes that they would be uplifted and recategorized as backward castes. But on the other hand, there is the effect that this would have on those communities which are already categorized as backward castes, which are greater in population and still look down upon Devendra Kulla Vellalars as inferior.
TTV Dinakaran has the confidence of one who has defeated the AIADMK, the DMK and the Congress in one go when he contested a by-election in 2017.
The Prime Minister talked about the Devendra Kulla Vellalars. Do you think they will be a major factor in the southern region of Tamil Nadu?
See, they have changed their name instead of Super as Suresh, that's all. That is the feeling of the people. No benefit they are going to get out of.
Your community is backing you?
All Tamil community will back me.
Kadamba Raju is the man TTV Dinakaran is up against. A former minister in the EPS government, he is hoping to ride to victory on the wings of his party's claim to Jayalalitha's legacy and of supporting the cause of both the Devendra Kulla Vellalars and the Tevars.
I am 10 years service. I am not complicated in any community.
Right.
I am both, all our communities, we are united as a brother. பல முறை சொல்கிறேன், என்னை பொறுத்தளவில் இங்கே பொறுத்தளவில் ஜாதி பிரச்சனைக்கு இந்த தொகுதியில் இடமே இல்லை. இங்கே அனைத்து மக்களும் ஒரு தாய் மக்களாக சகோதரர்களாக வாழ்ந்து வருகின்றோம். அந்த வகையில் தான் நீங்கள் சொல்கின்ற தேவர் சமுதாய மக்களும் முழுக்க என்னோடு இருக்கின்றார்கள்.
Raju's main problem may not be lack of support from the Devendra Kula Vellalars. It could be that both this and the Thevar community vote bank may get split because of a common anger against the ruling AIADMK. The cause lies here. Roughly 50 kilometers from Kovilpatti is the small village of Kodiyankulam, the site of a violent caste strife 30 years ago between the Vellalars and the Thevars, the cradle of later agitations against the Dalit tag. Kodiyankulam is almost entirely populated by the Vellalars who want to rise above the social stigma that comes with being identified as Dalits. This community has a significant presence in over 25 to 30 assembly constituencies across South Tamil Nadu, comprising almost 10% of the state population. Interestingly, it is usually voted en masse, but this time it's divided on what exactly the PM's promise holds. It's Dr. K. Krishnasamy that the villagers look to whenever they're faced with a choice in the elections. In 1995, when caste riots hit Kodiyankulam, it was Krishnaswamy who first responded, hiding villagers from their attackers.
அப்போ சமயம் இவங்க தான் வந்து ஃபோட்டோ எடுத்து வாக்கு எல்லாமே ஆஃப் பண்ணி இப்போ எதுக்கு அந்த மக்களை அப்படி பண்ணுதேன்னு போய் பெரிய இடத்துல பேசி நிப்பாட்டினதே இவர் தான். அந்த ஒரு சாட்சி தான் எங்களுக்கு. இவர் வந்ததுக்கப்புறம் தான் நாங்கள் அவரை வீட்டிலே குடியிருந்தோம்.
எங்கள் வீட்டில் 7-8 ஓட்டு இருக்கு. என்னோட சேர்த்து அவரு தான் போடுவோம்.
Since the 1990s, Krishnaswamy has fought many elections under the banner of the Pudiya Tamazhagam party he founded, each time aligning with a different Dravidian party. This time though, he's decided to go it alone.
Prime Minister's assurance, do you think of it as a well-calculated election move?
See, because the time of announcement, they should have a little bit earlier. See, nick up the moment. So that is creates some doubts. So, but anyway, we don't bother about it when they announce it. But ultimately, our demand must be met out.
Over the last few years, the party and the community have split into two factions. Krishnasamy may be fighting this election alone, but there are Devendra Kula Vellalars who have allied with the ADMK. There's also a possible split in the ADMK's most loyal support base, the Thevars. The ADMK's best-known Thevar face is Deputy Chief Minister O. Panneerselvam. 70 years old, a four-time MLA, he was J. Jayalalitha's most trusted lieutenant in the Tamil Nadu Assembly for 2 decades. He's fighting to save his Bodhinayakannur seat barely 150 kilometers away from Kovilpatti, a constituency known for its Thevar vote bank. For a man who's risen from the ranks, his confidence in his own community is not high. 2 weeks ago, he was enlisting the support of the Desiya Chettiar community in his hometown. 3 weeks before the election, OPS's home was barricaded by police after threats by members of various caste groups. But he dismisses the opposition.
சிறப்பான ஆட்சி நடைபெற்றுக் கொண்டிருக்கிறது என்று அனைத்து தரப்பட்ட மக்களாலும் கருதப்பட்டு மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு நம்பிக்கைக்கு பாத்திரமாக நாங்கள் கட்சியும் ஆட்சியும் நடத்தி கொண்டிருக்கிறோம் என்பதை நான் உறுதி செய்து அதை வைத்து பார்க்கின்ற பொழுது அனைத்திந்திய அண்ணா திராவிட முன்னேற்றக் கழகம் உறுதியாக இந்த சட்டமன்ற பொதுத் தேர்தலில் அறுதி பெரும்பான்மை பெற்று ஆட்சி அமைக்கும்.
In a state divided on caste lines, where every street is marked by the caste of those who live on it, a lot rests on the shoulders of Panneerselvam. OPS, who famously sat by the grave of J. Jayalalitha and meditated, later telling the world Jaya asked him to break off the shackles of her closest aide Sasikala.
However, in recent months, O. Panneerselvam has faded into the background. Remember, he was once made Chief Minister by none other than J. Jayalalitha. Today, he is reconciled to being the deputy. Many judge him for allowing himself to be overshadowed by Chief Minister Edappadi Palaniswami, a man who hails from another dominant community, the Gounder community.
It has definitely got this Mukkulathor community little angry, because everywhere in social media also you could see that even Pulipadai or Marudupandi Yekkam, whatever, they are telling like, no, this Edappadi government has ditched Mukkulathor, which means Devar community. And again, the demise of Jayalalitha and Sasikala being not active in politics, all these will play a role, and I'm sure definitely the Devar vote bank will be reduced for ADMK.
Yet, even in the face of a DMK wave in 2019, OPS managed to hold his own in his native district. His son was the only ADMK MP to be elected in the state. But he now has the additional responsibility of consolidating the Thevar vote bank across the south, a Himalayan task.
A possible Thevar backlash is one of the biggest worries for the AIADMK this election, because it would mean that E. Palaniswami gets an upper hand in the running of the party in future. Could election 2021 then make OPS an irrelevant factor, or would he survive this battle too?
Edappadi village in Salem is the hometown of Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Edappadi Palaniswami, a man who suddenly found himself in the CM's chair in 2017, 2 months after the death of J. Jayalalitha. For decades, Palaniswami, or EPS as he is known, and his ministerial colleague OPS had been obedient followers of Jaya's diktats, or of her aide Sasikala. Jaya's death and Sasikala's jail term meant EPS was suddenly thrust into leadership. The resultant political turmoil and the internal bickering between EPS and OPS resulted in chaotic administration for almost 2 years.
அம்மாவின் அரசு எடுத்து வரும் அம்மாவுடைய அரசாங்கம் தான் என்பதை அம்மாவுடைய அரசாங்கம் என் தலைமையில் இருக்கின்ற அம்மாவுடைய அரசு பேணி காக்க வேண்டும் என்பதற்காக தான் அம்மாவுடைய அரசு.
EPS constantly reminds people it's Amma's government he's running. He showered freebies and doles in preparation for this, his first election without Amma.
உங்களுடைய பொன்னான வாக்கினை இரட்டை சின்னத்திலே வாக்களித்து பெருவாரியான வாக்கு வித்தியாசத்திலே வெற்றி பெற செய்யுங்கள். மீண்டும் ஒரு வாய்ப்பை தாருங்கள். இந்த எடப்பாடி சட்டமன்ற தொகுதி முதலமைச்சர் தொகுதி தொடர்ந்து இருக்கும் என்ற ஒரு நிலைப்பாட்டை கொடுங்கள். உங்களுக்காக நான் உழைத்துக் கொண்டிருக்கின்றோம்.
In his bastion, Palaniswami is a crowd puller, and this Gounder loyalty may actually brush off on other Gounder candidates. K. Annamalai, the young star of the BJP in the Congo belt, as the Salem to Coimbatore region is called, is fighting his first election. Known as a Singham cop, he quit the IPS over a year ago to build his political profile. Now he is fighting to get the BJP a foothold in Tamil Nadu politics.
BJP has about 20 seats only in this election. Can you really make an impact in the assembly with this?
Of course, we'll be making an impact, ma'am, because the plan here is to make sure ADMK contests in a lot more seats. They have a very direct face-off against the other parties. So BJP has taken a very calculated view. Instead of focusing on more number of seats, we'll focus on less number of seats and make our candidates to win.
Your community backing is a boost?
More than community, ma'am, we are a nationalist party. Of course, the community backing is there. And Narendra Modi ji enjoys sky-high popularity.
Matching the AIADMK's aspirations are those of the PMK, a party started 30 years ago for the welfare of the Vanniyar community. The PMK is contesting in 23 seats, and barring those reserved for SCs, it has fielded a Vanniyar in each. The government gave the Vanniyars a 10.5% internal quota less than an hour before the model code of conduct took effect.
The ADMK-led alliance strategy is mostly a caste calculation?
I don't see that as that. Again, I go back and say that this is a social justice issue and this is a developmental issue. Single largest community in Tamil Nadu, which is very, very backward, and most of them are farmers. And you see the literacy rate in these districts are the lowest in Tamil Nadu. The highest amount of huts in Tamil Nadu are in these districts where these people, the Vanni people live. And the highest revenue or alcohol happens in these districts. And there is no industries, there is no employment at all.
What the AIADMK has stacked up to its advantage are 4 key vote banks. The Gounders in the north and west that EPS represents, The Devars in the south that OPS represents, the Devendra Kula Velalars who've been promised much, and the one-years who are still basking in the 10% quota that they've been rewarded with. The question on everyone's mind is this enough to pull off a decent win? On the other side of this edition, what does the DMK have up its sleeve?
The beauty of an election lies in the diversity in the responses to it. And repeatedly, elections have shown that taking the vote bank of each community for granted could be the biggest mistake made by political parties.
Durai Murugan is fighting his 10th election from Kovilpatti in northern Tamil Nadu. The General Secretary of the DMK is a prominent Vanniyar. A veteran politician, he is unperturbed by all of the AIADMK's antics on quotas and sub-quotas.
Is caste going to play a major factor in this election?
This is our some political parties are doing that one. It won't give any effect for them. People knows everything. You ask them everything, they will say.
The DMK Congress alliance has never claimed the backing of one particular group or community. But at the same time, it's met the AIADMK on the battleground, Thevar for Thevar, Gounder for Gounder, in every constituency where caste has mattered.
Caste-wise, some parties are trying to do it, but people will not get induced to it. BJP or ADMK, they want to do something to the caste. They must have done earlier. People of that caste themselves know very well, since it is done during election period. It is totally, it is an election-based technique.
Tamil Nadu has a unique example where some of the parties founded over the last 2 decades are targeting specific castes. If PMK is for the 1 years, there are smaller parties like the Gokulam Munnetra Kazhagam for the Yadavars and Peruntalivar Makkal Katchi for the Nadars and so on.
Tol Tirumavalavan has been watching the election games of the last few months keenly. The founder of the Vidudalai Chiruthagai Katchi, his is a party that has been focusing on the Parayars, the most oppressed Dalits. The VCK has allied with the DMK this election and will be contesting in just 6 seats. Tirumavalavan says he sacrifices his expectation of more seats for a greater common agenda, that of an aggressive secular front.
Will your voice be heard in the assembly with only 6 seats?
We are convinced, not compromised. We convinced ourselves to sign. We wish to continue the alliance. We don't allow the caste fanatics and communal fanatics in our Tamil Nadu state. That is our main motto. So, peacefully and smoothly settled with the DMK alliance.
Kannimozhi, DMK Supremo's talent sister, who's been campaigning intensely for over a month across the state, feels that all the caste calculations could get overridden by anti-incumbency.
This is not going to work. Polarizing people on caste lines or on the basis of religion has never worked in Tamil Nadu, and that will never help anybody.
Yet her brother has time and again had to defend himself against being termed anti-Hindu. The BJP's aggressive Veil Yatra, branding DMK as a party that disregards Lord Muruga, a much revered god, has touched a raw nerve in a party that once proclaimed it was atheist.
திருவாரூர் தேரை ஓடாமல் இந்த திருவாரூர் ஓட்டினது கலைஞர். கும்பாபிஷேகம் அதிகமாக நடத்தினது திமுக ஆட்சியில் தான். கோயிலை புதுப்பிச்சது திமுக ஆட்சியில் தான். ஆக இது சும்மா தேர்தலுக்காக பயன்படுத்துறது. தேர்தல் முடிஞ்சோன்னா அமைதி ஆகிடும். அது அவ்வளோதான். இதுதான் நடந்துகிட்டு இருக்கு.
At the other end of the spectrum is actor Kamal Hassan's Makkal Needhi Mayam, who has often said his party is the alternative to the two Dravidian parties since it has nothing to fear. That no taxman can come knocking on his doors as his books are clean, as his is integrity. He has in fact been accused by both alliances as being the other's B team, out to split votes.
Accusations of A team, B team, what team are you? A plus team?
If I am anybody's team, that will be Mr. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's team. I have always said that. I will not be part of any other team because I have checked out these teams. my due diligence tells me that they are not good enough
So you're
for
taking
the country or for me to look up to.
this election is very caste driven in a way,
We want to drive caste out and not be driven by the
but
caste.
that may be unrealistic in a way.
No,
Not really.
It is not. It is not. Sending out the Britisher sounded unrealistic. We did it.
Almost reminiscent of movies like Yuva, Kamal's party has been bringing together young, enthusiastic volunteers in all cities. Apart from Kamal's star appeal, party workers, doctors, former bureaucrats and the like feel they're bringing in a revolution.
Somebody has to set the foundation for change. We have done that. As an example of that is where in the candidate selection we didn't even ask them for which caste. We never have asked anybody in the party. One thing which probably is the first sign of change is people who are taking the money today. Earlier, if you know Tamil Nadu, they would say, they will give you a sodam or a camphor and say, promise that you will vote for me. Today, no party that gives money would dare to ask the voter to promise, because they'd probably throw it back on them.
The Tamil voter will soon decide whether this utopian idea's time has come. In a keen contest like this, where every seat matters, consolidating a few vote banks may make all the difference, even if it doesn't ensure absolute majority.
We are at the site of one of the oldest civilizations in the world, Kiradi, where excavations have been on for the last 5 years to discover the mysteries of how people lived 2,200 years ago. And one thing that has struck archaeologists on this site is that there is not a single symbol of religion in practice at that time. A far cry from the realities of today.
People in India vote their caste, of course. But in Tamil Nadu, caste takes a more intense, more compelling, even aggressive tendency. There have also been occasions when politicians have covertly supported candidates of same caste in rival parties just to give their communities a leg up. Because when it comes to loyalty, it is caste first, party next.